Welcome to today's episode. We're going to be covering the regulatory pressures and compliance requirements.
Aren't there many?
When I say that out loud, I get a bit of anxiety as well for agents, because I feel it when I speak to agents day in, day out. You feel, that pressure and the regulatory compliance gives them, because they're not compliance people, they're agents. So my name's Ree, by the way, and I've also got David from Andrews Property Group, and John, our compliance manager.
Hello.
So question for you then, John. What are the regulators actually signalling for this year? What's going to change? Is there anything coming into new legislation or regulations? Or what does the regulation landscape look like for 2026?
Well, 25 was a big year. I mean, especially in terms of AML. We saw the national risk assessment come in, and that was the first one that we've had in years. So that stemmed reform. You also had HM Treasury doing their consultation, and we had the new money laundering regs drafted in 25, which will get laid before Parliament in 26. And what the new regs are really trying to reinforce is to close some of the gaps. I mean, the money laundering regulations were written nearly 10 years ago now. So things like digital identity verification, they're not really covered in the regs. And they are mentioned maybe in one or two places. So I think what we're seeing now is regulators really wanting to make customer due diligence more efficient in the process, and to try and legislate for that, and to give decent guidance for central professionals and regulated entities to be able to use to work against, rather than so much interpretation and room for guessing. It's to really standardise things. So we're hoping for some guidance that's specifically going to come out from DCIT and HM Treasury on the relationship between CDD and digital verification services, and that should really bolster and give users and relying parties confidence about digital verification services, what they can and what they can't accept, right? Because I think that's a question that's a bugbear often. It's, where is this written down that I can use this and that it's okay for me to discharge my regulatory obligations?
And I think you covered it well there. The landscape has changed, haven't it, over the last 10 years? I mean, I can't remember the first time I did my ID in a digital way, but I certainly know that COVID kind of sped that up, didn't it? So, from COVID onwards now, I think it's expected for companies, not just in the property sector, but in the financial services, to be able to perform those checks digitally. And if the guidelines don't have a clear set out rules and regs around what you can and can't do with that, then I suppose that's why we're in a bit of a limbo. And is that why, or what is it that agents seem to be getting wrong then, or right, I don't know, wrong I suppose, because the fines, there was a list of fines that came out a couple of weeks ago. I think there was £850,000 worth of fines in the last quarter of the year alone. So, with all of this legislation and all of the tools that are available to the sector, why are we still seeing big fines like that?
Well, registering with HMRC is probably the main reason. No, in the way that, that's the largest fine that we're seeing, is agents not registering with their supervisory body in good time. And that was across the board the highest instance of fines. We're also seeing enforcement action on things like customer due diligence being carried out, lack of training. Risk assessments is a big bugbear, and getting those
risk assessments seem to be a big topic right now.
Yeah, and identifying PEPs can be an issue too. But you look at the levels of enforcement action that have been coming down, not just from HMRC, but from SRA, the FCA as well, and these are money laundering related fines. So it shows that there's real regulatory focus on drilling this into regulated firms and making sure they are performing their AML procedures correctly. But it's registering with HMRC in good time that is the main issue for agents at the moment.
And you mentioned sort of PEP and sanction checking. There's been a lot in the press about that, specifically with banks as well lately, hasn't there?
Yeah.
And not having the right procedures in place. So, if the big banks can't get it right, what sort of regulatory pressure do you guys feel at Andrews Property Group?
Yeah, I guess our world's changed quite a lot, and yeah, very rarely do I walk around our industry and speak to other people and think, yeah, you want to invest into your compliance team, but you
it's
are.
not the most exciting topic, is it?
It's not. There are plenty of other areas you want to invest in, but you are almost having to see it as an investment, because you are after greater protection. And I think, yeah, whether or not people have registered or not, that's something we've had to do for some time, and I would probably look at those companies and probably say they haven't invested enough to pick that out. So for us, there's a real cost burden, for sure, in time, just from having a team that are able to spot these things as they change and implement that change throughout the business. And it's harder to implement the bigger the business is.
Yeah. How many staff have you guys got?
We've got 380 staff.
So it must be really hard to manage that.
Yeah, and then you've got the change of regulation, but you've also got new joiners. So it's training everyone that comes on board.
And every time it changes.
Every time they change.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're in an industry that will have a 25-30% attrition rate. So you've got a fair few people coming through that system. So yeah, it's absolutely the cost of being aware at the beginning, the cost of implementation, the cost of training. So cost is a big burden for us.
Yeah, and it is a big cost as well. But I think my view on regulatory compliance has changed dramatically over the years. So when because I've been in the industry for over 20 years, when it first came in, I thought it was red tape, it's the sales prevention team, and it just adds more stuff for agents to do. But I think probably over the last 5 years, my view on it has changed from being red tape and being a pain in the backside to actually your 380 staff are on the front line of protecting people like us from fraud, from people trafficking, from all of the headlines that we see in the press. They're actually financial crime fighters. And they're keeping the bad guys off the streets. Yeah,
I don't think we receive payment for the government for that part.
No.
But it'd be great if we did. We're all for regulation. I think it should. If we want to be an industry that is seen to be professional, then we have to have a greater level of regulation in it. So we're supporters of it. I think it's just making sure that the regulation is clear, transparent, and ultimately everyone's playing the same game.
Yeah.
And then, with that in mind, we can get absolutely behind it, and it raises the bar. So it's probably too easy to open up an estate agency. That bar needs to be lifted, and I think it has to a point. You have to register with more entities now than you had 10 years ago. That's fine. But the higher the bar that shifts means people are coming into it long term, they're being serious, they're not just coming in and darting off quickly. So more regulation is probably a good thing.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree.
I think just to add to that, and it's a really good point, and we're working in an industry, that's where we're actually probably crying out for more regulation. And
simplified regulation, though.
That gives consumers trust, that they can read, they can know that a company is adhering to certain standards and guidelines. And the
businesses know exactly what they are allowed to do and should be doing from a compliance point of view.
Exactly.
So I think regulation is great. It's not great when it's grey, but hopefully now in 2026 we'll have a more streamlined sort of regulatory standpoint that at least just explains to us exactly what everyone's meant to be doing. I think that would be my hope for 2026.
I'll sign up to that.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much for your time today, both. Pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.